So today we have with us Viraj, the founder of Iyaso and this app Eloquent that he is building to help people overcome speech disorders like stuttering. As a person who's in healthcare and trying to understand technology implementation in this ecosystem, I find Viraj's work so inspiring because he's really out there to build something meaningful that really creates impact in the lives of people and an app that ethically integrates AI and technology into healthcare. So before I give away everything, we have Viraj with us. Viraj, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, hello, Sanjana. For someone who stutters, introducing themselves is always one of the hardest things to do. I'm very excited to be on this podcast with you.
So without further ado, let's actually get started. And I really hope that by the end of the podcast, our audience truly understands what it means to ethically integrate AI into healthcare and to build products that meaningfully drive impact in someone's life, right? So yeah, let's begin. Viraj, I read your LinkedIn post, right? And I know that you've struggled with stuttering yourself. But tell me something about stuttering. Is it like this common misconception that it's just because of social anxiety, or is it deeper than that?
Right, right. So, stuttering is a speech condition, right? Where the person who stutters, for us, it's often hard to speak words, right? So we might get blocked on a certain word. And then no matter what you try, it is very difficult to get that word out. So, for example, I would say good morning, right? And anxiety does not cause stuttering, but it has a very tight connection with it. So, people who stutter most of the time, they never stutter when they're alone, right? So, they do not stutter when they're alone in a room. They usually do not stutter when they are talking to people that they are very comfortable with, family, friends, right? But when you're talking to a stranger, right? When you're talking, when the speaking situation is high stress, such as you want to present in front of the class, or you are speaking to someone in a position of authority, or you're giving an interview, right?
Hmm.
These situations are inherently stressful. There is an inherent element of judgment in it, and the more the element of judgment, the more the stress, the more likely you are going to stutter. So a lot of people, I think a lot of people are aware of stuttering as a speech condition that people face.
Yeah.
uh, but what they're not aware of is that it does not affect only your speech, right? Now,
Okay.
because your speech is something that is so closely tied with your image, right? It's so closely tied with your self perception. When your speech is affected, it has a very
Your
direct,
confidence is impacted.
absolutely, it has a very direct
Yeah.
impact on your confidence, your self
Hmm.
image.
Hmm.
And because of that, it ends up affecting your relationships, it ends up affecting your studies, your career, right? It
Hmm.
seeps into
Definitely.
all aspects of your life.
Viraj, tell me one thing. So stuttering usually begins as when you're a child, or can it develop later as well? And how does that progress over the period of one's lifetime?
Uh, so it can be both.
Hmm.
Most of the times, the stuttering that we see, it's also called. So the clinical name for stuttering is childhood onset fluency disorder, which
Hmm.
usually starts in childhood.
Hmm.
Uh, there could be stuttering that starts because of trauma or some other condition or some accident that can happen later in your adulthood also, but that is treated very differently. It's not the same condition. It
Got it.
usually starts in your childhood, let's say between the ages of 4 to 8, 4 to 10.
Hmm.
And uh, so often children, as their speech develops further, they grow out of it. So so often developmental stuttering in children can spontaneously go away,
Oh.
but around 1% of 1% of adults stutter. So
Oh.
which is not a small number at all, right? So 1 in 100
Yeah,
would have started
definitely. Yeah, the percentages are it's a fool's game sometimes because the population is so large. Of course, 1% is a you know
1% is a large number.
I
And
feel it's not even about being a large number, even if it's one person, right? I mean, it's about making impact in even one person's life.
absolutely, absolutely. And for that, for for the adults who stutter, right? For that 1% group, there is no cure for it, right? So stuttering
Hmm.
cannot be, quote unquote cured.
Hmm.
Uh, the only option that we have is to go to traditional speech therapy,
Okay.
which is expensive, right? Because therapists charge per session, and then
Session.
you have
Yeah.
to go again and again. You need to
Hmm.
repeat sessions with them. So
Hmm.
so traditional speech therapy is expensive, and it is often ineffective. So there is a lot of research that demonstrates that in traditional
Hmm.
speech therapy, either it will not benefit you and you will not see an improvement, or even if
Hmm.
you see an improvement, it is often short term and the benefits of that are not sustained post the treatment.
Oh, okay. So it's something that you just have to manage throughout your life. It's like I don't know if it's a right comparison. Like sometimes people have diabetes, so it's something you have to manage for the course of your life. It's not something that can be cured. But with the right tools, with the right therapist, in this case, even an app like Eloquent, it helps you manage, right?
Right. So we often, I mean, I prefer to use the word overcome stuttering instead of
Okay.
curing stuttering or
Hmm.
managing it or addressing it, right?
Okay.
And what do I mean by overcome, right? So as I said, stuttering, although the clinical disorder is related to speech alone, stuttering
Hmm.
affects all aspects of your life, right? So to give you a
Yeah.
very trivial example, right? Or not trivial actually, but and the example. So growing up as a child, I always liked butterscotch ice cream.
Hmm.
Yeah. But pronouncing butterscotch was very hard for me. It's a large word, it's a complex word.
Yeah.
So I would always order something else, right? I would always ask for
Oh.
mango, vanilla, chocolate, right? But
Hmm.
I would always avoid butterscotch, right?
Hmm.
And this is the same for everyone who stutters, right?
Hmm.
You will avoid speaking in groups. You will you will always try to miss the first day of class because you need to often introduce yourself to everyone.
Yeah.
You will get out of situations where you need to speak, even though you know that situation is something that is very important for you, right? Like an interview, right?
Yeah.
So one of the differences between, or the way I often see it, right? One of the differences between a good therapist and a great one, right?
Hmm.
That a good therapist identifies your condition that you're struggling with and then works on addressing that.
Hmm.
A great therapist does all of this, but
Hmm.
she will often ask you that what would you do today? That
Hmm.
what would you do today if you did not have this condition at all? Right?
Oh. Hmm.
Those are your aspirations, right? That
Hmm.
if I do not stutter, what is it I will do today? And being able to do those things is what overcoming stuttering really means to me.
And that's
So
that's really meaningful. So is that what really sparked the idea for Eloquent? And I don't know if this is a joke, but I mean you speak very eloquently, Viraj. So it's a very apt name for your app.
yeah, I think it. No, I still stutter at times.
Yeah.
And stuttering is also very situational, right? That you might
Yeah.
stutter in one situation and you might
Yeah.
stutter in others. Uh, but um, but I think uh, working on yourself, right, always has a lot of benefits.
Hmm.
So now I'm speaking to a lot of users who are using Eloquent actively,
Hmm.
and one of the things I tell them, right, is that the the speech therapy on eloquent or in
Hmm.
general, right? It will help you improve your fluency, yes. It will reduce
Hmm.
severity of stuttering. It will reduce the frequency
Hmm.
of it. But
Hmm.
the most important thing it does is it teaches you to speak in a controlled way, right? So rather
Okay.
than speaking in a natural way, right, which most
Hmm.
people do, when you practice speech therapy, you learn to speak in a different way, in a controlled way, right?
Hmm.
Which over time it will become your natural way as well.
Hmm.
But because of that, because you're able to control your speech now, you're able to control different aspects of it, right? You're able to control how fast or how slow I want to speak, right? Or
Hmm.
you're able to control what parts of the sentence you want to lay special emphasis on.
Yeah.
So that is, of course, one of the side benefits of speech therapy for stuttering.
Hmm.
But coming back to eloquent, right? And how did I
What sparked the idea, right?
what
Yeah.
sparked the idea? Um, so I'm also an AI researcher, right? I have started
Hmm.
two technology companies in the past. Both were in
Hmm.
the data science AI ML space,
Hmm.
and I have experience not just developing AI for healthcare, but
Hmm.
also ensuring its adoption in clinical practice, because both of these
Hmm.
are very different things.
Very separate. Yeah.
And uh, I saw that there were a lot of mental health apps that were coming up,
Hmm.
which people were finding very useful.
Hmm.
Um, there is also a lot of there is also an increased acceptance of delivery of healthcare through apps. So nowadays,
Hmm.
if I want to start exercising, before I go to the gym or before I go for a walk, I might actually install an app for it, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm one of those people.
So,
Yeah.
I think the first responders to anyone who faces a mental health challenge or
Hmm.
any other condition, the first responders in the future are going to be apps.
Hmm.
Also, I have over time I've attended many self-help groups,
Hmm.
spoken to many people who stutter, and
Hmm.
I saw firsthand how difficult it is to get help. Right, there are a lot of barriers.
Definitely. I just to I'm so sorry to cut you over here, but I mean, this is to your point, right? It's having access to quality therapists as well, or quality healthcare. It can be a function of geography. It can be a function of your income. Sometimes you're not able to tap into essential resources that you really need because a lot of times insurance doesn't even cover certain therapy, right? And this is why I believe that tech first healthcare, when done ethically, right, it can be so useful to the people. And in the social climate, right, it's so important to talk about that because Viraj, I feel like everyone wants to get into healthcare and everyone wants to do AI. It's like the buzzwords. But what about doing it properly? What about doing it sustainably? What about really building a product that caters to your audience, because healthcare is something so fundamental, right, that you can't just build anything and put it out in the market. It really has to drive some impact.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, of course. I think so. One of the principles that we started out with uh, was ensuring that eloquent, or trying our best to ensure that eloquent creates real value and it is able
Yeah.
to improve clinical outcomes. Right? So that is one principle I definitely do not want to dilute.
Yeah, and like you're my hero.
And no, and I think, I mean, it is still very early. We just launched
Hmm.
Elevate 2 months back, but we already have, I think, around 16,000 users on it now.
Wow, that's amazing.
It has been a great start. It's also a testament to the need, right? That how strong this need is.
Hmm.
Um, and the early results we are seeing are great. Um, of course, it's very early. You know, it's
Yeah.
been just 2 months, and we do not yet know whether the improvements are going to last.
Yeah,
Uh, so so yes, one we definitely want to our primary principle that we do not want to dilute is that this creates tangible positive outcomes,
yeah,
and it is it it takes a certain amount of time to figure it out, right? So we need to be
definitely.
patient with it.
Yeah.
Hence, that is also the route that I'm taking. That I want to be patient with this and keep working on it.
So, Viraj, what's your long-term vision for this? And I mean, if that's okay, I mean, depending on patient discretion, can you give us a tangible example of how the app was able to help a particular patient? And, based on that, what is your vision for Eloquent?
Yeah. No, in fact, the stories that I'm hearing from our users they're heartbreaking. And so
Hmm.
I spoke to a student, an engineering
Hmm.
student, who completed his first year
Hmm.
and is now too embarrassed to go back to college. So he has dropped out
Hmm.
of college. He's using
Hmm.
Eloquent um, to sort of improve his speech uh,
Hmm.
and increase his confidence so he can start attending college again. Then spoke
Hmm.
to a doctor.
Hmm.
She said she cries every night because
Hmm.
her patients don't take her medical advice seriously. Where she stutters when speaking with them, and the patients feel that her stuttering is a sign of ineptitude, and hence they do not trust her advice.
Hmm.
One of the stories that was particularly difficult to hear was of a mother and her son. Right? Uh, so the mother used to stutter from her childhood, and she was able to get along fine. But now her 6-year-old son has also started stuttering, and
Hmm.
um, her family blames her for it. Right?
Hmm.
Uh, they blame her, saying that because she speaks like this,
Yeah.
he is also seeing her and speaking like this, right? And
Yeah.
uh, so she comes from a rural background. I could tell that she's not going to go to a city and see a speech therapist ever. Right?
Yeah.
But she was speaking in broken English. I told her how to use the app, and I think 2 weeks after that, she spoke to me again, and she told her that her son is now making an effort for improvement,
Oh,
which was
that's
great.
so
So now,
amazing. Yeah.
mother and the son, both of them practice using Eloquent every day, keeping
That's
my
exceptional.
fingers crossed that it ends up helping them.
Viraj, just one quick question, which I think we didn't talk about. How does the app actually work? Can you give us like a very quick brief on how it actually, what exercises are there, what tech is there to actually help people?
Right. So, stuttering has two components, right?
Hmm.
One is the production of speech, right? That there are speech therapy exercises that help
Hmm.
you improve fluency. Right?
Hmm.
So, what to do when you are stuck in, or when you are stuck on a word, right? What techniques can you use to come out of it?
Hmm.
Right? So speech therapy techniques are one component of it. The second one is dealing with your maladaptive beliefs about stuttering. Right?
Okay.
So your stuttering is very closely tied to your self-image, and
Hmm.
over time you create a very you create a very complex web about
Hmm.
feelings, guilt,
Yeah.
anxiety, embarrassment, right? Feelings of
Hmm.
insufficiency. Right?
Hmm.
And the app also helps you work through that.
Okay. So it's a very
So
holistic app.
I think it's not just important, but it is it's absolutely required that you address both the things. Uh,
Yeah.
Addressing or doing speech therapy exercises alone is not sufficient.
Hmm.
neither is working on your emotions and attitudes.
Hmm.
So you need to work on them both, and that is where you sort of break the feedback loop between the two. So Eloquent provides you different tools. So there are informational videos on it which educate you about different techniques that you can use.
Hmm.
Uh, you have tools right on the app which allow you to
Hmm.
practice the techniques that you have learned.
Hmm.
And well, one area where traditional speech therapy often fails is in
Hmm.
transfer of skills.
Hmm.
For example, a client goes to a speech therapist, right? And in the first meeting, the client will stutter more because it's a new person, right? Now you're talking to a
Okay.
stranger.
Hmm.
But over time, in the next couple of sessions, the
Hmm.
client develops the comfort, right? Then you become comfortable with the therapist. You
Hmm.
automatically start
Hmm.
stuttering less. Right?
Hmm.
So the therapist, after a while, the therapist does not know how
Hmm.
bad, how severe the client stutters when outside the
Hmm.
clinic.
Hmm.
Um, the second issue that therapists often face is how do you help clients transfer skills to the outside world? So
Hmm.
learning a skill and practicing it on your own in the comfort of your room is one thing,
Hmm.
right? But now
Hmm.
when you use the techniques when you're speaking to a real person, now
Hmm.
you're scared, you are thinking of a lot of things that could go wrong. Your entire attention is focused on juggling, stuttering, and figuring out what to
Hmm.
say at the same time.
Hmm. Hmm.
In this, in this stressful situation, it is
Hmm.
hard to remember, what technique should I use and then apply it. So
Hmm.
there's a big gap, right, between practicing on your
Hmm.
own and applying techniques to the
Hmm.
real world outside.
Hmm.
Uh, Eloquent also helps you with the transfer of skills by providing simulations on the app.
Okay.
So there is, we introduce an intermediate step where
Hmm.
I can practice using a simulation on the app.
Hmm.
And then this I can do again and again, right? So I can
Hmm.
do it once, I see how it goes,
Hmm.
and then I can practice using the simulation again and again. It gives me an intermediate
Hmm.
uh, step to reach where I want to reach, right? So these are
Makes
a
sense.
few things that Eloquent helps with, but I think these are the features on the app, right? And
Yeah.
more important than the features, I think one, it makes users think about their stuttering in a
Hmm.
proactive way, right? So rather than just lament about it and worry
Hmm.
about it and feel concerned
Hmm.
about it,
Hmm.
this gives them a framework to think about it in a proactive, constructing way. Okay, what can I really do about it?
Yeah.
It gives them a starting point. It gives
Hmm.
them a set of tools that they can start with, and
Hmm.
it increases their self-awareness about how they speak and what
Hmm.
happens when they stutter.
Hmm.
And that I think is the biggest value, right? It gives them a path towards improvement.
Makes sense. So, Viraj, what's your vision with Iyaso? Like, are you going to expand to other speech disorders? What do you see happening in the next 1 2 years?
So, to be honest, it's stuttering is something that I've personally faced. I understand it well, and
Hmm.
I want to leave no stone unturned to develop an app
Hmm.
that can really help, right? And that is
Hmm.
going to take time. So
Hmm.
I want to focus on stuttering,
Hmm. Hmm.
develop it, and
Hmm.
but it is also true that there are many conditions that are adjacent to stuttering. Right?
Hmm.
So if we can help people who stutter, then we can
Hmm.
use the learnings and insights from it to help people facing other speech conditions as well. So we are still at the start. I don't know what the future holds.
No. Thanks, Viraj, for doing this again. This has been really helpful, and I really hope people take cognizance of speech disorders, especially stuttering. And I hope that people become more empathetic and compassionate towards such disorders, right? Because a lot of times our compassion can help people overcome and even manage stuttering and adjacent disorders. So yeah, thank you, Viraj.
Thanks a lot. It was great speaking with you.